Hi. Welcome to the Municipal Truth and Reconciliation Committee meeting for Monday, February 28th, 2022, 5 p.m. I shall call this meeting to order, number one. And number two, we shall have the land acknowledgement by Mayor of Lawrence.
Thanks, Chair. As we start our meeting, we acknowledge that we are on the traditional territory of the Sioux First Nation within the area of Treaty 3, and that many of the people and communities we service are in the areas of Treaty 5 and 9, the Anishinaabe Nation. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, number three is the agenda. So 3A, introduction of amendments to the agenda. Anybody want to add? Everybody has their agenda. Okay, nothing there. So we shall move on to 3B, confirmation of the agenda. Anybody want to move?
Yep, Candace can. I can.
Yes, okay, and then Mario will second. Okay, thank you. All right. Number 4, declarations of pecuniary interest. It says none. So we shall go on to number 5, the adoption of the minutes from January 24, 2022 meeting. I guess everybody must have got them. All right. Okay, I don't see anything. So somebody adopt the minutes for January 24.
I can.
Okay, Lynn Marie. Well, it's moving him, and we need a seconder again, Mario. Okay, thank you. All right, the minutes of the January 24 meeting are now adopted. Okay, number 6, business arising from the minutes. Anything? Yes, Mayor.
I would just note that received a letter from the library board and the library that the records have all been transferred to Sioux now.
Okay.
And Chief Bowles acknowledged that.
Okay.
That was the item on the Braden to Huey school records.
Okay.
Sorry, I took down my minutes. I'm not sure what the item number was in the last meeting. It's being completed as we envisioned.
Yeah.
It was item 8A.
Okay. The records are in Sioux now, so that's good. All right. Okay. Anything else from the minutes? So. No. All right. Okay. So we'll move on to number 7, then the delegations, presentations, and committee presentations. It says nil, but I know we have a guest online there. Yes.
Through you, Chair. It was discussed at our last TRC meeting. We were having a trouble getting the subcommittee for the renaming of Umberville Park together. We kept losing quorum every time we wanted to have a meeting or people couldn't attend. So we thought, since the majority of the members of the subcommittee are from the TRC, save and except Tom Terry, that we would invite him to each of our meetings, and we would take it on by the TRC, invite him to the meetings to discuss that item. And then he was, on the agenda. So we put that first on the agenda for discussion. And then if Tom wanted to leave the meeting afterwards, he could, or he could stay if he wanted to. So that's why Tom is here at the meeting this evening, so because we're discussing the renaming of Umferville Park.
Okay, he's here under the subcommittee for.
Yeah.
Historical. I think it is. Okay. All right. 8A, then we shall discuss the renaming of Umferville Park. What's that noise? Somebody's backing up. Just kidding. Okay. Review of the work plan and move to step 3. It says public engagements, suggestions for a name for the park, everyone. So 8A, renaming of Umferville Park.
So if I may, Chair Darlene, from the subcommittee, we had numerous discussions on how to proceed, and at that time, the chair of our subcommittee was Garnet Anjikaneb, but unfortunately he can't remain on the subcommittee. So we developed a work plan, with timelines for the process, because we received some feedback from the city of Dryden on how they went about renaming Colonization Road. And from there, we developed this work plan as to the different steps. At step 2 in October, we did put out a media release. And from that media release, we did receive some feedback from the various people in the community, and it's attached in the agenda this evening. Some of the phone calls we received or comments we received to our media release online were to the effect that they didn't want to see the name changed. They felt that it should stay Umferville Park for various reasons. And attached to the agenda this evening in your outlooks is various emails from Barb Mulstat as to why she thinks it should remain as Umferville Park, and a bit of the history there.
Anybody else? Any comment? Yes, Mayor.
I've just thought about this after reading the emails that were provided with the agenda today, and I'm just going to put this out there, and I'm interested in reaction from the committee and from our guest Tom Terry. It's my understanding that we weren't targeting Umferville Park to, as it was said in one of the emails, take down history or anything like that, and Mr. Umferville wasn't necessarily a historic figure that had done bad deeds as such. He was just one of many explorers or whatever. And it just occurred to me, all right, what if we don't rename Umferville Park, but part of what we want to do is recognize history and recognize the Indigenous people as part of that history. What if we rename another prominent location that, and I'm sure somebody will probably find offense with another suggestion, but I was thinking Second Sandy Beach. It's Second Sandy because it's the second sandy beach, I think, as you leave town. I'm not sure. I found out that renaming First Avenue or something could lead to problems too. But what if we went to some effort to come up with, and when we think of one unknown gang, I think the Lake of Sandy Beaches or Sandy Bays. Darlene can help me with both the pronunciation and get you to struggle with that one too, and the actual translation. But just a thought that I'm just throwing out there for consideration.
Yes, Mario.
What I like to say is, okay, 230 years there's no explicit evidence of Umfraville staying or shoring or camping at that site. So that's kind of an unsure fact. It's not even a fact, and they admit to it even on the plaque. However, what we do know from archaeologists is that versus 230 years or whatever year was stated, we've got 10 to 14,000 years where we've had indigenous people fishing there. It is actually a historical site. I really don't understand our position where we have a few emails out there that people don't want Umfraville Park changed. We can't please everyone. And I went on the site today, and I've done some work on this project. And I went on there and I looked up Sioux historical sites. The only one that I could find was the CNR train station, which the town had done. I guess we'd have to check with poor Brian again, because that was his project. So I don't know if he got it as a historical site or some other means were done.
It was, I think, through the federal government. I think is a designated historic railway station designation. Right. Yeah.
Well, what I found out, if I can report this now to the committee, is I look at this as a two-part project. Number one would be the Ontario Graphics Names Board, which is a sub of M&R, and they are the people that change they introduce, they change, they alter, they introduce geographic names for different places. We'd have to contact them. They have a board of 5. They meet 3 to 4 times a year. They officially adopt proposed names through the M&R, and we would actually have to apply to them for it, and they would go out and seek information or present it to the MTO, because MTO owns the site. I have all that information here on how to do it in the whole 9 yards. And what have I got here? Then there's a second. So what that will do is that will make, let's say if we went through with Umfraville Park, it would make and change it to another name. That other name would go on maps. It would be in their gazettes. It would be like a formally done thing. That's the new name. The second part is through Parks Canada. Let's see, the Minister of Tourism, Parks Canada, and National Historic Sites. Do we want to make that area a historical site? And they're the ones that put in the plaque. And they have 3 levels. One's federal for national significance. The other one is through the province for provincial, and municipal through local. That part there is where they put up the plaque. They ensure that that area is protected. And it's like having an old house where if any changes are going to be done, then they have to get specific approval from that board. And what it does is it preserves that site. Let's say it's owned by M&R. Maybe M&R wants to put a gravel pit. So they dig it up and they start making gravel. Who knows? They had gravel problems in Kenora, for instance, and they'll do anything to find gravel versus blasting rock and crushing it. But they go on to say it involves the health and wholeness or commemorative integrity of the historic sites it operates. This means preserving the site, cultural resources, communicating its heritage values and a national significance, and kindling the respect of people whose decisions and actions affect the site. So there's the renaming of it, and then if we want to go further, make it a historical site. So that's the information that I have found. We would have to get a letter of support from MTO. We would probably need an archaeologist review. I don't see that being a problem. Anyway, that's what I got to report.
I think if we do that route, we need to get additional we need to have it like more of the population to have their input, because right now we had a public release and the only people that compelled to answer were the people who don't want this park renamed. So if we are going to go against the people that we asked, we should at least try and advertise it more so we can have more than just one point of view.
I found in all things that you get more negative responses than positive responses all the time. People aren't submitting their comments. That's what I look at it. If we're going to go with dealing with every email or every comment, we can't please everyone. We just can't. And I would love to see some sort of historical significance of the Ojibwe here in Sioux. Like, we're in the heartland and I don't see anything out there. What, Sioux Mountain? I'd like to see more of it.
All right. I just see, yeah, the email, maybe one email from somebody?
Yes, through you, Chair. What happened is when we put out the media release, there was a lot of comments on the Facebook page, on the municipal Facebook page with reference to that, and it wasn't very nice comments on both sides, so we took it down.
Yeah, and
Really?
it seems like this town is not ready for reconciliation. Like, I
Mhm.
mean, look at the town council itself, all white people on the town council here in Sioux. I mean, that speaks volumes. And so when something like this gets out into the media, we see a lot of reaction, right? And it's been like that for a long time. So I don't really see too much in the way of reconciliation. So we are trying as a committee to address some of these things and to try to make some changes. And maybe this town is not ready.
Well, we have the support of MTO. We have the support of
Council.
the Ontario Geographic Names Board. I've talked to them on the phone myself, and they would like to promote that kind of thing. We have the support of Lac Sioux and Chief Bull. Like, we do have a lot of support.
Municipal Council also supported it. We sent a resolution to council and they supported it as well.
Apologize. Yeah. So there is a lot of support out there. Work at the LCBO. Just go in there sometime and spend some time in there. And exactly what Darlene said it's probably the reason why I quit working there.
Okay, well.
Chair,
Yes.
Could we ask our guest to comment? This is why he joined the meeting, perhaps.
Okay.
Mr. Terry has a comment.
Yes.
Oh, hi, this is Tom here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. I was just going off mute. You would like me to speak to this?
I think Mayor Lawrence was looking for us on the discussion so far.
Oh, okay.
I thought this is why you joined the meeting, Tom, was to speak to this issue.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good. Yes. Thank you. Well, yeah. First of all, I have to agree with Mayor Lawrence. I don't think it was the town council's their intent to erase history. I think that certainly the comments that I've read and what I've heard about the feedback, I'm a bit dismayed that it still comes out so readily. And from from people who I presume are, in a certain way, community leaders in their own right. Yeah, I'm a bit dismayed at that. However, at the same time, what we've seen in the response, it reinforces the original intent of what we had talked about, and what I've talked about with Mayor Lawrence, Chief Bull, and what I proposed in a prospectus, proposal to the town about place names. And the discussion, I agree with Mayor Rossetti. I know that, I mean, the process that he talked about, that's what occurred when we successfully had the name change for McQuay Munis in Pelican Lake. It's a very, and the MNR, well, at both the provincial and federal level are very willing to address this disparity in the that exists in these names. I think that again, I think the response that we've had, it just reinforces the need to develop more of the indigenous history. I mean, people have been glossing over it, and you know, the name gets changed to Frog Rapids from Municipal, and people forget about the indigenous background of it. When I think about Humphreyville Park itself, in some ways, now in hindsight, I mean, I was part of the subcommittee for a year, but in hindsight, I think it was maybe an improper choice, Humphreyville Park itself, because I've done some research in place names around here, around our area. I have some background with that. I have never seen a reference to the land at Humphreyville Park in traditional or indigenous sources. It's just, you know, undoubtedly the Hill family camped there. It's a lovely spot. I'm sure the Hill family used it quite a bit. And I think that, and I know that that's the reason why one of the kind of, you know, names or the suggestions for names that was tossed out there by Garnet was the Hill Beach, or you know, some name that would recognize the Hill family's presence or their traditional territory in which Sioux Lookout is in. I think for, you know, of that area, the place that has a traditional place name is Municipal, Frog Rapids. And if we're going to look at changing names, I mean, that's the one that exists out there, really, and that's where we should start. You know, I don't think we need, you know, we're not going to erase history, but at the same time, you know, in a real practical way, when you think about it, Humphreyville was no different than me going and documenting a canoe route somewhere and writing it down. I mean, that doesn't make me a historical figure. And, you know, and, well, Humphreyville, in a sense, he's a historical figure, but he didn't spend any time on Abram or Pelican Lake and at that place. It was named simply because he was a figure of history and traveled through that area. I guess, yeah, the name of Humphreyville Park for that place, I don't know, in some ways it's, you know, it's not appropriate, but then it's not wrong in a sense either, in and of itself. I think the place has, you know, it has some historical significance to people in the area as a source of food and a meeting place and a reference in their travels. But frankly, as far as other, you know, meaningful history for that location where the Humphreyville Park is, I don't think there is any. other than the fact that it was probably used extensively by the Hill family. I suggest, I thought about it some over the last couple of weeks, thinking about what you could do with Umphreysville Park. And one thing you could do is, it could be expanded. It's Umphreysville Park at Muckaty-Powhatan. And then we make an effort to change Muckaty-Powhatan, or we change the name of Frog Rapids to its traditional name. And maybe I have a conflict of interest here, but I put this proposal out to the town 5 or 6 years ago about a project to research and document and promote place names from around the entire area, not just Frog Rapids, but many of the other places. Sioux has collected traditional place names. Stories exist for some of those places. Certainly, history and stories could be generated for more of those places. And I think that would begin to address the disparity that exists, and the reason why we're getting these responses from people in town about this fear of all of a sudden we're erasing history, and really the reality is the indigenous history has been erased, or it's and I think that if anything we have an obligation to try to restore that. It was the settler society that took the Muckaty-Powhatan and changed it to Frog Rapids and put it on all the maps so that all the English-speaking people would know where Muckaty-Powhatan was. But I think there's an onus on us as non-Indigenous settlers to take some ownership of what's happened here and begin to restore some of that history. Part of colonialism was erasing the history, erasing the presence of people on the land, and that still is occurring. I see it happening with the extinguishing of commercial fishing licenses so that sports fishing corporations can establish resorts and fishing places. This stuff still occurs now. And I think that we have to begin to stand up and try to reverse some of that. And I think we can begin to do that by getting people to more fully recognize the presence, the previous and existing presence of the indigenous people on our land, and to acknowledge some of the richness that was there. I've traveled a lot in northern Ontario by canoe. And as you travel along these waterways, you see these places where people used to live, and you encounter people that ask you about that special place that they were at, or that they have this part of their personal heritage, that special place. They're asking you about those places. The land is still alive with indigenous culture, and I think we need to try to reverse the erasure of that. And that's why, that was my whole purpose of getting involved with this committee. We had hopes to that addressing, that we would begin to address this issue, and that it would expand to other areas within the certainly within the area of Sioux. When I originally talked to the committee, and talked to Chief Bull and Mayor Lawrence, I talked about a partnership between the band and the town, between the First Nation and the town, and if you're going to expand that place names. So some of my thoughts. is promoted and more important and all of that. I need to that committee to bog down on all that, because that would be losing sight of really the things that need to happen, which in my mind is beginning to restore some of that history and continuing to document and bringing that history out and somehow getting so that it's part of our town. Because in many ways it's not. You can go to other places and it's obvious that they have really embraced the indigenous people that are their neighbors and the indigenous land on which they have settled. But we really don't see that in Sioux Lookout. And I unfortunately I agree with some of the comments about reconciliation it was like I had the air out of my sails and my balloon when I read those emails from Barb Molstad. I mean, maybe I shouldn't be surprised. I mean, here's a person who makes some money selling real estate.
This is a, Tom?
I'm sorry, I'm getting personal, yes.
It's an open meeting.
It's also live streamed.
Yes, okay, fair enough. I'll stand by my comments. But I was dismayed to see that. And it is an indication of certainly the job that your committee has. It's a big job, but I hate to see it get lose sight. And I think that some of it needs to take action. I agree with the sentiment that we're going to hear from the people that really object. I think that that's right, and that the people that have been elected to council and that the council has selected for your subcommittee, I trust that they have good judgment and are doing this for the right purposes. And I would support you in going ahead and just doing some of it. Consulting with, doing some consultation, having some public meetings, if you will, whether they're virtual or face to face. Have those public meetings, but do what you think is best.
Yes, Mayor.
Thanks, Chair. And thanks for those comments, Tom. Well thought out. Yeah, council has supported this name change, and I didn't mean to introduce when I made my comments earlier. I support the name change. I think we also can't ignore the fact that we have a 4 kilometer trail that we call Umferville Trail, and I think it's signed as such. And so Mr. Umferville is still being recognized here. So, and reconciliation, I think, requires, the question becomes, if we believe in reconciliation, when the chips are down, what are you willing to give up for reconciliation? You have to, reconciliation might mean giving up a little something or moving your position a little bit. So, I think the CIO had laid out what we might be doing next or how we would move forward. Chair, if I could ask for that.
I kind of like Candace, what she said about letting people decide. I don't know how that could be done. Yes, Michelle.
Thank you, through you, Chair. So the next stage, we did do the initial media release that garnered a little bit of conversation on our Facebook page, but we took it down because it wasn't, the comments weren't pleasant either way. And then we did receive this one email from a resident as well, indicating the importance of Umberville's history here. So what I would suggest is, before going to public engagement through suggestions for names for the park via email, municipal Facebook page, that perhaps we put a step in between there and actually do a survey and get people's comments, written comments, to the municipality on behalf of the TRC committee, so that we can collate those responses and bring it back to the TRC committee, and at the same time garner input through the survey, as well as to names, possible names for renaming Umberville Park, and perhaps putting out as an example the suggestion that we use the Indigenous name for Frog Rapids, as Tom has mentioned, just as an example in the survey, to give them an idea of, you know, what could be done, type of deal. And then that would help us more inform our next steps as far as public engagement goes.
Hi, it's Tom Terry here again. I'm wondering, in your communication to the public about the renaming, if it might make it, if it might be easier if you added the words, instead of the renaming of Umberville Park, if it says instead the renaming of Umberville Park and area, or something of that nature. Umberville mentioned it because of the park, because of the rapids, the landmark at Makakipawate. And that really, in many ways, that's the only reference. He talked about the rapids there. And I just thought, I wonder if that just might make it easier if it's not so specific to just the park and to just Umberville. Anyway, my 2 cents. Thanks.
Hey, Darlene.
Yes.
History is told by the people who who tell it from their interpretations and point of view, and then as history, or as time moves on, people believe in the stories that are told and get attached to the meaning of places once it's been recorded. Now, I did a really brief historical search, and I understand that there were even explorers before Umberville, thinking from the Hudson Bay Company, Samuel Hearn, who probably did more exploration in the waterways than Umberville ever did. And the thing is that all these explorers were following waterways and transportation routes that Indigenous people established. And that all that history of Canada is ignored because other people told the history from their point of view. And the thing is that there's rich stories written by the Hudson Bay Company and the Northwest Company about traveling in these parts of Ontario. If I'm not mistaken, they were looking for a route to Lake Winnipeg from Lake Superior. And so, you know, it just happened that a man wrote down a significant fishing place of the Ojibwe. They encountered the Indigenous people of this area. You know, Indigenous people traveled all the way up to the Albany, you know, James Bay from here. the waterways is extensive. When you look at the maps, you know, you just like, oh wow, look at this. There was economic trade, and if it was a waterway heading towards Lake Winnipeg, I can imagine what kind of trading would have happened even down the river from Lake Winnipeg to the what is it? Where the forks are, those waterways that converge, where the forks are. So there's a rich, rich history that potentially can be unearthed with being open to the possibilities of. I wouldn't say it was righting a wrong, because like people don't know better. When they tell history, they think it's their story. So it's you know, it's the one who gets heard, or the one who writes it down gets noted. And I don't know if there's still a living oral history within Lac Sioux for that waterway. But it would be interesting to unearth what could be unearthed there. And I, you know, like when did the railway come through here? 1920s, 1917, around the last pandemic or the First World War. You know, people were exploring, people were traveling in the waterways, and so it's. And the thing is that I don't know how long that name has been uncontested, because if you can imagine, communication wasn't as readily available as it is today. And you know, the stories of the families who lived along both sides of that straightway were removed. They were not misplaced, they were relocated because the CN Railway wanted to establish a base in this area. So, I mean, like, people do get attached to recent history. It does not reflect what the historical or cultural significance of the waterways was to the original people here, to the Indigenous people. And yes, I get a little, how do I say, a little wound in my heart when I hear longtime Sioux Lookout residents say things, and I'm just like, I don't know. Yes, I'm a visitor here. Yes, I've only lived in Sioux Lookout for almost 15 years, and but I'll tell you something, that sometimes when the non-Indigenous population talk about the original people, it's really sad to hear some of the comments. And you know, the only way that we can break through those, I don't know what to call them, they're the history, to provide some accuracy of the historical base, you know, is taking that risk sometimes. You know, let's find out, really, you know, let's find it, take the time to explore, you know, like get a summer student going to explore some of the history. I know the only records that are really there are the Hudson Bay Company and the Northwest Company, and probably some land surveyors when they were trying to map out the railways and the highways and how to use the land or get the resources from the land. Truth and reconciliation is about telling the truth. a lot of Canadians don't want to hear how Canada was made. And they're just like, oh, that was a long time ago. It was, it was a different lifetime, different attitudes and everything like that. Okay, so it was. Now let's focus on reconciling our past, bringing it to a place where everyone is honored. What's stopping us from developing more of the original settlers, their families, because from the sounds of it, many of the people who hold on to the stories from the early 1900s, they're all settlers. They're all settlers, and that's how many generations ago? At least 5 generations ago. They carry those stories from one generation to another, and then you forget the origin stories. I really want to see more research done. I really want to see more input from Lac Seul. I want to see input even from Mushkegowgaming, because look at the waterways. That's where they go. That's where they go. And the English river system too. This is a meeting place. It's a meeting place, a natural. Anyways, yeah, it's. I don't know if history is being erased in such a way, but if you look at the geography of the area, it's a natural hub for travelers. And it had a lot of cultural interaction. So let's celebrate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Mario?
The only thing I'd like to say is that my family originated in Sioux in the early 1920s also. I was born and raised myself in Sioux and have lived here for the vast majority of my life. And I really, really agree with a lot of the stuff that Tom has to say. And he's talking about history. And I went to school here. I was educated here in Sioux. And if you go back to 230 years or 1492, it's as if that's when the world started. And when Umferville comes by here in 200 or 230 years ago, that's when history starts again. I was born and raised in this town, and I know nothing about the indigenous land around me other than the legend of Sioux. And I know people that don't even know the legend of Sioux. I think the municipality needs to grab the bull by the horns, and I think we need to push forward. I think we need to recognize the people around us and the land around us. That's why I think we should make it a historical site, because then it's documented. Mm-hmm. It's not just a change in name.
It's Tom Terry here again. I agree with Mario and the previous speaker's comments. It's just another perfect example of where things don't exist until the colonizers write it down and document it themselves. I mean, there's so many examples of that, and whether it was intended or not. It doesn't matter. The effect was it erases the knowledge, the presence of the people, and it's almost an effort to remove the people. So many things are out at play still that work to remove people from the land, to stop them from pursuing their traditional activities because those activities were contrary to making a million, if you will. The people, indigenous people on the land, and indigenous people, their presence on the land, and I'll extend that to the place names. Those are seen by obstacles, as by industry and by the people who want to develop this land. Indigenous people have a whole different way of looking at the land and resources and it's contrary to how European settlers approach the land to make money. So I just wanted to toss in my agreement with those comments. Thank you.
I just want to say one thing. I feel as a citizen of Sioux Lookout, it's disrespectful of the Indigenous people for us to ignore their history. It really is.
Huge.
Okay. And any other comments here on this discussion? Renaming of Umphreville Park. Okay. I guess I think just when the park was paved over, it seemed like a lot of people were saying there were a lot of artifacts that were covered, and you know, that happened over there recently, and yeah, it's too bad that we can't get any more commentary from more Chief Bull, you know, and then some of the traditional people who might have something to say, and with the archaeologists too, because there are still a lot of artifacts in that area. And to me, it seems like it's an area that should be protected. And so I'm not sure how that would happen, or at least recognized anyway. We need more education out there to the public on, I guess, what we as a committee are trying to do, and what this town and this council is trying to do with reconciliation. Maybe there needs to be some kind of education that happens with the public or within the social media or any other platform that's out there that could be used, the town website, perhaps. I'm not sure what else could happen here. We're always going to have, I guess, still, even now, we have a lot of comments from anything that gets put out there on social media right away. Everybody just hops on it, and there's so much negativity, especially when it comes to, you know, Indigenous issues, and yeah, everybody has something to say, that's for sure. And it's just too bad, you know. I don't know how we can turn that around. There's got to be a way. Okay. So if it's under the work plan, then I guess we would have to see. There's been a lot of work that's been done, and yeah. So I don't know what's going to happen with this now.
It's Tone Terry again. I'd like to suggest that maybe there's a way for a formal body, whether it's the TRC committee or the town council, or to begin to do some promotion. I mean, this will take some work. I mean, people will have to do some research and to come up with I don't know what you want to call them, history bites, you know, but to begin putting out some information about history of the area. And there is history out there. I mean, there is some that we can pull and from the settler sources. It certainly is respectful and relevant to in an Indigenous context. But I think we can also get out begin promoting some of the other knowledge, some of the knowledge from the communities, and even if it's it might not be a long story about why Frog Rapids is called Frog Rapids, but it might be a story about a personal connection that a family has to that place as an Indigenous person. And so, I mean, in the short term, I struggle to come up with some other examples, but I know they're out there. And there's someone mentioned the wide-ranging travels of some of the Indigenous people. I've read about Indigenous people in synopsises of the Hudson Bay archives, the Hudson Bay journals. But they talked about one of the men, Sutherland, a trader from Fort Albany. He was up along in Minnetaki Lake, Sturgeon Lake. In Sturgeon Lake, he met a family, a Cree family, in Sturgeon Lake, trading and living there. And he had met this family 6 years before that in Fort Severn. Fort Severn is probably 1,000 river miles anyway from Sturgeon Lake. But when I read that, it was just an account from the explorer at the time. But for me, as a casual reader and Sioux Lookout and someone with a bit of knowledge about the area, when I read that, I was blown away by the mobility. Here's a man he's traveling around the country, living on the land as an Indigenous person. But he's traveled more than 1,000 miles through waterways without a map, using his much greater mental powers than any of us have for memory and creating a mental map. Like, he was able to sit down with others at some point in his life and talk about where he wanted to go, and somebody else was able to tell him how to get there by describing a few key landmarks that he could remember and then identify and follow along the way. These people traveled and lived on the land without maps. Some of the things that could be conveyed to people are mind-boggling. But we have to do the work. We've got to get out there and look at it and begin to share it. Because it's in my mind, it's really worth sharing. It's not just something that, it says tremendous things about the human condition, not just Indigenous life and people. Anyway, enough.
All right. So we have the history, I guess, with the. I'm not sure how we could find out more about the Indigenous history. A lot of the history was passed down orally with stories, and I'm not sure who would have those stories within them right now, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
There may be some people out there. I'm not sure. We'd have to find them somehow, and to tell us about some of the places around here.
And much of that work has been done. Chief Bull has shared a map that contains many of the place names, and I think we can broaden that reach with work that's been done elsewhere. If we are able to partner with some of the neighboring communities, and then get some of our own research done, and begin sharing that. And whether that's a twice monthly column or something in the paper, I don't know, but it is going to take work somewhere by someone to produce some material, and then it needs to be shared. The graphic. I'm a map guy. I just love maps. Maps tell a story to me. I see incredible things in maps. And so when I originally talked to Chief Bull and Mayor Lawrence, I talked about somehow getting some financial assistance to create an interpretive map presentation. One that could be put at the maybe at the train center. Well, when we had a museum, it's a train center, at the train station, and then at the Travel Information Center. But it could be a map of the whole area, and talking about well, the fact that I, as a settler person, I'm here because of a partnership between the Crown and the Indigenous people here. I have a place to live, and it's a privilege that I live there. And that privilege exists because of the partnership between Canada and the Indigenous people in this area. That's a fundamental thing. I mean, I think some of our communication needs to begin there, but then we can start talking a little bit more about some of the specific places. And I suspect that many people in Sioux Lookout, if they knew, I mean, they know of Harvey Narrows and, you know, different places that, you know, that they're familiar with. So again, those landmarks that those place names, those landmarks that they grow up with, they're used to, they're touchstones for them. They're references for them and their own personal stories. But I would like to think that people have that I would like to think that people that have place names with meaning like that in their own lives would find similar meaning and could find richer meaning if they knew that there was richer meaning for others, or there were other stories, there were other things about that place which were important to other people. I like to think, anyway, that that knowledge would resonate with people. But they might be offended initially if we're going to talk about changing the name of that point to their favorite campsite to something else. But if we can make their experience of that place richer down the road, then we've succeeded, and that person will embrace that other name. And I think that will, embracing that other name and that greater understanding that person will have will be displayed, will be exhibited by them in their behavior in their life. Maybe I'm naive and romantic, I don't know, but that's where I like to see that, and that's some of the reason why I'm interested in some of that.
Okay. Yes, Mario?
I have one other thing to say, and I don't know how to say it, but I'm going to say it anyway as best as I can. Justin Trudeau introduced the carbon tax. He knew he was going to get flack, but he did it because he thought that was the right thing for the country. We vote municipal council in to make the hard decisions, not to make the easy decisions, but to make the hard decisions. We know that we are going to get flack for doing things that we do because you can't get agreement by everything. But sometimes in my opinion, I would, other than just a resolution from council or, you know, to continue on or a letter of support, I would like to see council become more involved in Indigenous, in what we're saying right here, to promote it at their meetings, the importance of the area that includes the Indigenous population.
All right. Anybody else? So, I'm just reading this work plan. I'm not sure what should we do next then with this naming. So we do more research into it. Yes. Yes, Mayor.
I think the CAO sort of had laid out a plan to reach out to the CAO.
Yes.
Yes, through you, Chair. If the TRC members remembers quite clearly, about at least 6 months ago, we went through this process about each member looking for more information on the Umferville Park, and also I know that Garnet and Kaneb had mentioned the Hill family, and each person was to go out and try and find information and bring it back to the committee, so that we had a starting point to put some of this history together. So at this point, we're talking about it, and we don't have the resources, at least staff don't have the resources to dedicate to all of this history work. So what I would suggest is that perhaps we reach out to the public, again, through a survey saying, what can you tell us about Umferville and area, Umferville Park and area? What is your experiences? What is your ancestry in Sioux, whether it be white, indigenous, doesn't matter what color, culture, so that we have all of this information together and then inform the committee moving forward, and then start on the next process of public engagement with the information that we have, and look for possible names for the renaming of Umferville Park.
Tom Terry here. I would like to suggest that, well, it's not about Umferville in my mind. I mean, we've got history out there about him. There's been books, we've got the history there. The point is, we don't have the history. I mean, we're in a situation where much of the history of a vast percentage of the people that live in this area now has been suppressed, and I think we need to focus on trying to draw out that. If we're going to ask for,
Hold on.
Chair, with respect, I think that's what the CIO was suggesting, is to reach out to people for the unwritten history.
Correct.
Is there a way we can involve Lac Sioux and
Absolutely.
work together like a joint venture? Because this is, we recognize it at every meeting. This is their land. They should have opinions, and they should, instead of just providing us with support, that we do it together.
And this would be part of the outreach.
Okay. Yeah. I'm sure Chief Bull would have suggestions, because he's in contact with a lot of the elders. So he may have to get them together sometime, or talk to key elders to see who would know, and the information. So you maybe contact him and see what we can do here. Okay. Yes, Mayor. Were you going to say something?
So for those who can't see me, I was just leaning on my hands. Sorry. I think perhaps we should move on, Chair, and staff can bring back a point form plan for moving forward with the Umferville Park name change,
Okay.
which was supported by council.
Okay. Good to know. All right. Now we'll just move on to item 8B, the work plan. So the work plan was sent to everybody. And Michelle, did you want to?
Yes, through you, Chair. Just give me a second to get it. So most of the work plan is a continuation from last year because of COVID. There are certain things that we weren't able to do. So we're leaving the Northway Section Cemetery memorialization event on it. Also with the Anishinaabe, other relationships with the Anishinaabe Gamic Friendship Center. And as we're able to open up a bit more, we may be able to start some of these things. What I would suggest is everything stay on the work plan the way it is now, but also add in 2022 the erection of the flagpole that was purchased, because that was precipitated through the TRC in 2021, and the flagpole did come in, but it didn't get erected before the fall hit, and that was part of our part of reconciliation to fly the Lac Seul flag on it, a separate pole for that. So I would suggest adding that to the work plan for council's approval, and also the celebration of Equanimous, because we probably will be able to do that in the spring, summertime.
Great. Okay. Any other comments about the work plan?
So if the TRC committee is amenable to that, I will be bringing a report forward to council for our March council meeting, just to get their approval on the work plan and the use of our $2,500 towards some of these initiatives.
Okay. Yep. Sounds good.
Thank you.
All right. So I guess that's about it. Number 9 says work plan.
Oh, sorry, that was just to review the work plan, but there's no real update from the last meeting.
Okay. Yeah. All right. And then number 10 is the next meeting date, March 21st, 2022. So that's, what day is that? Usual Monday?
I believe so.
Yeah, March 21st is a Monday. So, okay, Monday at 5 p.m. And motion to adjourn. Anybody? Okay, Mario, move it. Do you want to second that?
I will. I'll second.
Oh, or Candace?
Sure.
Okay, so we'll see you, I guess, March 21st. Thank you, everybody,